Hello, it's Eric Brown with some film analysis, and what we are doing is we're taking a look at a scene from The Fosters, which is a TV series that's currently available on Netflix. The scene was picked randomly, and we're just going to analyze it to see what lessons we can take from a professional production and apply to independent filmmaking. And in particular, we're looking at camera movement. So let's analyze the scene just to give you a little background on this scene. The Fosters are two women who are married, and they have a number of foster children. One of them is Callie, who is the protagonist, and Stephanie Foster, one of the mothers, her father has recently died, and so people are gathering at the funeral home. Okay, so the scene starts with an establishing shot. It's a simple tilt moving downwards to show the church, and we can see the Fosters in the middle of frame here, walking past the front doors of the church. And if we continue this, we come down and we see a Girls United truck in the foreground, and this is the home where Callie's staying, so this is obviously Callie in the truck. And then we move into a simple dialogue scene between Callie and the worker at the home. This is a transition to the Foster's family walking past the doors of the church, and you can see here that they are back quite a ways. They're here at this car, are not in the place in the middle of frame that we saw in the establishing shot. So this is just the movie making magic. Nobody would ever notice that little incongruity. Okay, so we see Callie's point of view, and then we go back to the car for the discussion. Callie's obviously the focus here, and so she takes up the primary time in this clip. Now we do a medium wide that comes to a close-up, which is over the shoulder. This is Stephanie Foster, and she's greeted by her wife's mother. And then we see, I'm just going to go back here, we make a transition to the medium wide shot to the other Foster mom. And this is a nice little transition here where we see the police officer walk through the frame to reveal these two characters. Then we go to a two-shot. You notice the background is always rich. There's lots of dimension always in all of these shots. And we can see that the camera is typically anchored down. It looks like it's on a tripod, but it could be on a Steadicam as well. Now there's an interesting transition that I'm just going to show you again. Now these two are talking, and we see this device used a number of times in this scene and throughout this episode. And I'll just go frame by frame so you can see what happens. The two are talking, and then we see a police officer cut into the frame, and he's very close to the frame, moving across to the right. And then as we transition, or as we cut to the next clip, we see the police officer continuing that movement. So this is just cutting on movement, makes the cut invisible. You wouldn't even notice it because our eyes are seeing the continuity in that movement. If we were just to cut to these two just standing there, the cut would seem a little bit more abrupt. Look at this cut or this transition, because it's a subtle thing, but these are the kinds of things that make all the difference. So notice that as they're finished up their conversation here, the captain walks in front in the foreground here. Notice her eye line, and then if we continue forward, that motivates this character to look forward. There's a slight pan, you'll notice, to keep her in the center of frame. So we know she's looking onto the street. She's looking at something. So naturally our brains think that she's looking at something, and we're curious. So it makes complete sense when we get this cut, when we get this transition to the kids walking up to the church. Okay, now here, again, there's very little camera movement. Here we see a slight pan to the right to keep her in the middle of frame. It's a small pan here to keep these two framed. Now, it's just simple over-the-shoulder shots for this conversation. And then we go to a medium wide of the whole family again. That's all gathered closely now. And again, you'll see a little bit of a pan. You can see, watch the background. You'll see the background move across. A little pan, then we come on to these two. Now we'll see this transition again where someone comes into the frame here. You can see a head moving into the frame here. And then I'll just advance from frames. And this is Stephanie Foster's mother that comes into the frame here. And again, we see just a very small pan just to get her into the frame fully. And that's all there is in terms of camera movement there. And go to the wide shot to establish that they're all walking into the church. That establishes Callie and Jude's position. They move into the center frame as people move out of the way to become the focus of attention. And then we go back to just the standard over-the-shoulder shots. Now wide to show that they're heading up into the church. We cut to this shot that's in front of them, and you'll notice that we have a zoom happening here, and they are walking to the camera at the same time, and there's a little bit of a tilt down to focus on their hands. And that provides this transition, which is a scene from the past. This is Jude and Callie as kids going to their mother's funeral. So a really nice little match transition there. And that's the end of the scene.